I'm alive, baby, I'm thriving. Oh, yeah.
Well, good morning. It is great to be on today and talking with an amazing individual that is a significant leader here at One Mind at Work and part of our efforts. James Platt has joined us today. James is the Global Chief Operating Officer for Aon. Aon is a professional services company, and James sits on the executive council of Aon, oversees the technology, digital business called Aon Business Services. And most importantly, James, is the chair of the One Mind at Work Global Guiding Council, our leadership group of business leaders who help to set direction for One Mind at Work. And James, I just want to welcome you to our Brainwaves today, and thank you for participating. It's really good to be on with you.
Thank you. Look, Daryl, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And look, you know, the intro is a bit over the top, frankly, Daryl, but great to be here.
Oh man, no, I think it probably left a lot of important information out, but it's been a joy to work with you. There's an energy and a passion here, knowing this isn't your day job. It's not what you spend the salary that you're earning doing. You put heart into this work. And I want to start there because at One Mind at Work, we talk a lot about leadership and culture and leadership vulnerability. And I know you're driven. You're passionate about this. It's not something you're doing just to get it on your resume. Can you talk about your story a little bit? What brings you the kind of passion and energy that we see all the time in your connection to One Mind at Work?
Sure. And Daryl, look, I'm delighted to, because you say I think it is important that we all understand, you know, why are we doing this? Yeah, it's not, as you say, what my salary is for, maybe, but I actually think the purpose of what One Mind at Work is trying to do is incredibly important. And that does come from my background and my life. And I'm fortunate personally. I think I have had pretty good mental health. We all have periods where actually we do suffer. But my background goes back, Daryl, almost to when I was in the military. And my first career was in the military. And at that time, and this is probably going back 30 years, but at that time, we didn't talk about it. And I watched as I was in Bosnia, and I watched as one of the troops I was with in Bosnia had about, out of 30 people, I think had 3 attempted suicides. And that struck me right from then. So that was quite early on in my career of why was that? Why did that troop of 3 attempted suicides and others were fine? And the irony was that was the troop that wasn't anywhere near the action. Now, what I should tell all the listeners, viewers today is that you helped me actually understand that 30 years later when you started talking about purpose and the importance of purpose. And these people were not in the action and maybe had less purpose. Now, no idea if that's true or not, but I thought how interesting. But look, not only from my career, you know, and today, you know, thousands of colleagues, and I work with a part of Aon, which isn't always, the colleagues that I work with aren't always in the best conditions, have tough jobs, need to serve their clients, and mental health, mental well-being is a massive issue for them. And then Daryl, probably lastly, just more personal, like any family, you know, we have our struggles. My wife, and by the way, coming on to this, I did check with her that she would mind me mentioning
good idea.
But she has struggled on a sort of ongoing basis with depression and real difficult periods. And I've watched that and said, and I've been powerless to help at times. And that's tough. My kids haven't always found it easy, particularly entering the workplace. And that brought me square to One Mind at Work. And this mission, which I think you're driving and Garen's been driving around, how do we use the workplace? That to me felt something that I can help with.
Yeah, and you know, it's really interesting. You talk about this purpose dynamic, and when I talk to groups, often I'll say, how many of you have had an experience where someone close to you or you yourself have struggled? Every hand in the room goes up, right? Every hand in the room. It's so pervasive. And yet it can feel so lonely when we're in the middle of it. And the data says that mental health struggles have been growing, including in the workplace, for many years, but not necessarily having a spotlight on them, the kind of leadership attention that they should have had. And then COVID hits. We have the pandemic impact, and here we are in the middle of it still after we're in our third year. And there's COVID coming on top of that increase. And I'm curious what you've seen as you look around the industry and the clients that you work with. Has there been a COVID impact, a COVID acceleration? And what's some of the good and bad of that you've observed?
So Daryl, Aon, as you know, is partly in the job of helping clients on well-being and health issues, and we see a lot of that in our clients, and a lot of what you mentioned. And I want to avoid some of the look. Clearly, it's a topic that has come to the top of everybody's minds, and the sort of question is why. I think partly because we've just taken the curtain and moved it aside. I think in the workplace traditionally, as much as we took an interest in our colleagues, we only saw them in the workplace environment, and people could hide a lot in that workplace environment. And I think as we've worked virtually, and we as a firm and many of our clients really have moved completely virtual during this period for long periods, we've seen people in a much broader sense. And obviously, the stresses and strains of COVID have changed things, but that seeing people in their full sense has allowed us to begin to understand how tough it is, and how tough it is for many of, in our case, many of our colleagues and many of our clients' colleagues. Now, we do our own surveying, and we survey about 1,600 clients in 41 different countries around well-being. And we came back that 67% of organizations now see stress, and I think in this case, stress, we're talking a pretty broad definition, as their major well-being issue. I mean, it's fascinating, right? Because that's probably the one well-being issue that an organization can actually do something about. So it's not only to me that we've now observed it, I think in the workplace, we're able to actually help in a way that some other things that we can't help with. And that really gives us some sort of power. But it's a big issue that thankfully we're all ready to tackle.
Well, and I like your terminology. We pulled back the curtain. It was there. It has been there. Brain functioning is at the center of the performance of every human being, including essentially an entire value in the workplace and in their life's purpose, right? And so pulling back the curtain makes a lot of sense. And in some ways, it's a blessing. We're starting to see that more clearly. You mentioned working with a lot of clients in this space. And of course, Aon itself has 50,000 team members. What are some things you see people doing now that curtain's pulled back and starting to intervene, starting to attack the challenge head on?
No, Daryl, great question. And look, as you start to look at our clients, what they're doing, what we're doing, I mean, some of the things are pretty, I wouldn't say obvious, but why we weren't doing them before, I think is a surprise, actually. I mean, it's as simple as making it a topic to discuss and having real conversations. But if you go out, beyond that, which I think is incredibly important, and I think has helped a lot of people, access to care. If we see the plans and the programs that a lot of our clients are now putting in place, just proper access, employee assistance programs being set up where this topic is part of it. The whole measurement of well-being, and I think that's a topic that maybe we want to talk a little bit about and about what One Mind at Work's doing. But broadly, we carry it. We do well-being surveys. We do looking at resilience of clients. People are interested in having those conversations now. But what's interesting to me, Daryl, in this, and I think we've done a huge amount of work in Aon around the topic, trying to force different behaviors, different cultures. You know, the one thing that's been incredibly important to us is allowing colleagues to be flexible in their working. You know, many organizations have said, no, we want you to be back X. We have not done any of that. We've said, no, we want to have colleagues confident and comfortable in how they want to operate and how they want to work. But even with all of that, I'm still struggling a little bit to see what really does work and what maybe is a good idea, but maybe doesn't have the impact. And like anything else, as a leader in a business, right, you want to know, am I getting the return for the actions I'm taking? And I think in this space, we're still not sure.
That's such a great point, because there's so much complexity behind the actions. When you talk about access, there's real access. I can get in this week to see someone, and then there's virtual access. Well, there's a name on a network, but I can't see someone for 12 weeks. That in the EAP realm, we have an EAP, but 2% of people use it. Why aren't people using it? And those are things that One Mind at Work, I know we all wrestle with. Every company wrestles with the solutions and then the effectiveness of those solutions. And you talked about measurement. It seems so key to that. Otherwise, you don't know what's happening. It's a great point, and I really like how you framed that. Well, I'd like to get over into One Mind at Work and your leadership role on the Guiding Council. One of the things you tell me all the time is, hey man, we need discussions, really strategic discussions in our Guiding Council meetings. We need to really create change with these leaders. We don't want this just to be a report out kind of meeting. And it's been powerful, the kinds of work we're doing together and the discussions that we have. What are you most excited about? You mentioned measurement. We're doing a lot of things in 2022. And as you look ahead, what do you think it will have a significant impact?
But Daryl, when I look at One Mind at Work and One Mind more broadly, you know, what you bring and and the reason I got so excited about working with you and what the organization is doing is really bringing the science and bringing that and saying, how do we take a very scientific based approach and work with a whole range of organizations? And I think, you know, we've had the conversation ourselves with some of the other Guiding Council members like Gordon Watson, AXA, or, you know, David Long, etc. But we've had this whole thing around how do we bring science and have leaders and follow and sort of use strong organizations to help other organizations, because not every organization is made equal. And you're thinking around, let's use the workplace as the place to actually bring people together and then provide them tools. So when I get excited, it's around, look, we can build measurement if we all work together. It's actually pretty hard, and I think we've found it hard, but if we bring scientists, real expertise from places like Columbia, like we're doing, we bring that into an environment, an employee-based environment where we really can understand what's going on. We've got this sort of petri dish. And if we learn these things, how to measure, what works, what actions are effective, then we can take them to a much broader group, and we can use the power of all the members of One Mind at Work to then spread that across. Some members contributing more at the start, and say, we're excited to help with the index that we're setting up. Some members taking those and making them work for their employees. So this better together and the mix of capabilities, large organizations combined with much smaller organizations combined with science, I think has got a massive opportunity. And then the last thing I'd say is global. I mean, you are operating globally. Often we get stuff in, and for us as a global firm, that ability to tackle this globally, because culture really matters in my mind, is incredibly important.
Yeah, and you're sitting in London, and I'm in California, and we're talking here, my morning, your evening. It's part of how our network works. So it's pretty fascinating. That petri dish, or the living laboratory that our network creates,
yes,
is something that, you know, is just, it does have power, and it can translate some of the science into reality in places where people gather with infrastructure. Thank you for raising that. It is something that I think is very exciting, has been underused historically. James Platt, You are a great friend, a great leader, and it's been incredible to work beside you. And I'm really excited about the future, where we're headed. Thank you for being on this episode with me, our inaugural episode around our workplace efforts. I'm really excited, and I just want to end with gratitude for your leadership and your commitment.
Well, Daryl, look, it's totally mutual. I think the work that One Mind at Work is doing is incredibly important, and I'm just humbled and delighted to be able to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Sam.
You're feeling anxious, afraid, alone.
I haven't been able to see my family or my friends.
Families that struggled to find mental health care before find it even harder now.
I feel a lot of guilt in not being with my family.
Are there solutions? Visit onemind.org, seeking the answers, bringing help to the front lines, accelerating brain health for all. Help us fund new treatments at onemind.org.
I'm living my best